The rain and the humidity cannot stop us. I have owned this dump truck, this 1988 Chevy R30, for 3 years. And finally, I have figured out why it will not start without using starting fluid or putting gas into the carburetor. This is a 1988 Chevy R30. It's got a 5.7 liter, 350 cubic inch engine in it. It originally was a TBI throttle body injection. A previous owner removed that and did a TBI to carb swap. So they put a new intake on it and they put a Summit carburetor. It is a dump truck, by the way. I made a video about taking the dump bed off. If you watched a bunch of my other videos, you know that I'm always using starting fluid to start this engine. Well, I do not do that anymore. I will take a cup of gasoline, I mean just a very tiny amount, pour it directly into the carburetor, and this thing will fire right up. It starts easily, pretty easy, when you put gas in the carburetor. Then you hold the accelerator down a little bit for a few minutes, and once the engine warms up, this thing will idle great. It runs good. Usually if you turn it off, you can come back like 30 minutes or an hour later, it'll start back up okay. It's just that very first initial starting after it's been sitting here for a day or a couple days. This thing will not start without putting something into the carburetor. This is only the second carbureted vehicle I've ever owned, so I really don't know a lot about carburetors. My understanding is that normally when you pump the accelerator on a carbureted engine, I guess the accelerator pumps in the carburetor should squirt some fuel right into the fuel bowl. And that gives you the initial fuel to fire up the engine. I think I'm going to pull the carburetor off today. A couple years ago I cleaned it, but I don't think I cleaned the accelerator pump. All right, let's take this dirty air filter off of here. Hopefully this battery is charged up. I haven't started this thing in a couple weeks. So we will pump the throttle a couple times. And let's see if this thing will start. Now I'm not going to do it right now because I want to take this thing off and clean it up a little bit and check it out. But if I were to pour just a little bit of gasoline into this carburetor, this engine would fire right up. And then if I hold the accelerator down a little bit, let it warm up for a minute or two, this thing would run really good. And as much as I was pushing the accelerator, I don't even smell gas in here. I don't know what's going on. I've watched other videos, and normally when people push on the accelerator, you can see the fuel squirting, but I don't see it, I don't smell it. I'm gonna go ahead and unhook this battery. The negative anyway. We will remove this little thing, unplug the electric choke, take our accelerator clip off. I'm going to put this little piece back on here so we don't lose it. And we got to take our spring off of here. Pull this vacuum line off of here. Now we got to take the fuel lines off. I got the fuel lines loose. You just use 2 wrenches and loosen the nuts, and so we'll pull this out of here. Got a 12mm ratchet here, and we got this other vacuum line I almost forgot. So I got the nuts off the studs here, so we should be able to just pull this off of here, I think. Yep. I'm gonna stuff a few paper towels down in here. Put a couple more in here. Got some pretty bad thunderstorms headed this way. Hopefully I can get this thing back on here before they roll in here. I don't want to lose these, so we're just gonna put them on here. I think we are all set up to clean this thing. So I found this pan. Maybe that'll catch some of the carb cleaner. I wish I had a bigger one, but I don't. So this thing is really dirty. I'm gonna go ahead and try to clean the outside of this carb since I have it off the truck and it's easy to get to. I've got a cheap toothbrush. I've got some water, got some carb cleaner. I'm just gonna scrub on this thing a little bit. We got some paper towels too. We got this thing looking pretty good. It looks better than it did. I'm not gonna sit here all day and scrub and clean on this thing, but it looks a lot better than it did. So it's been about 10 or 15 minutes. This top piece, I took everything apart a couple years ago, cleaned everything real good, but I don't remember taking these off. The accelerator pumps. So I'm gonna pull these out and take a look in there and maybe clean inside there. Well, maybe you can tell, but it's raining outside. So I don't know, do I unscrew this? Yeah. I don't know, there's kind of like some sediment, dirt or something. I don't really know what I'm looking for. It's off here. Ew, okay, yeah. This may be my problem right here. This is like rusted, and this spring all rusted, and inside here just rust and goo. Yes, I bet this is what the problem is right here. Try to give you a better look. I don't know if you can see, there's just a ton of like rust and sludge in here. And this thing is all just nasty. A lot of rust. And the spring is completely rusted. This, I think, is why my truck is not starting at the very beginning. When I'm hitting the accelerator, all this junk in here is like clogging up this thing. If you haven't watched my earlier videos, when I bought this truck, okay, it's an 88, it had the original tanks, and they were full of rust and whatever, old gas. So the previous owner, he paid a shop to do the TBI to carb swap. So that shop put the new intake on, and they put this carburetor on, and they left the old dirty fuel tanks on the dump truck. Well, then the previous owner drove it around a little bit and basically sucked all the rust and crap out of the old dirty tanks right into your brand new carb. So all this crap in here, I can tell there's no way I took this apart before. This pan, by the way, has already got a hole in it. I mean, it's not big enough. It's not sturdy enough, but yo, just sprayed my camera. All right, let me play around with this thing. See, I want to try to clean that little hole right there. I'm going to try to clean this up real good, get all this sludge out of here. I have loosened up the top of the carburetor. I did not want to take it apart, but I'm going to have to because I think there is a clog in here somewhere. So I've got all these screws loose. Okay, we'll just... If you didn't watch my previous video, maybe like 2 years ago, when I first took this thing apart, this was just full, both sides, full of rust and gunk. Just like what I showed you a minute ago. on the accelerator pump, just full of trash. I got them pretty clean, you know. They're a little stained on the bottom, but there's not a bunch of sediment and whatever. But that was from a couple years ago when I cleaned it. I don't ever keep very much fuel in that thing, a couple gallons at a time, because I don't ever hardly use that dump truck right now anyway. So I'm always putting fresh fuel. I'm going to continue to take this apart. I think next I'm going to take this out and see what's going on here, because I think that may be where the clog is. If you work on carburetors, I'm probably not telling you anything new, but I'm kind of learning this as I go. So this little rubber thing right here, whatever this little, can you see that little thing down there in the corner? That's where the accelerator pump is. And this fuel bowl it's always got fuel in it. See, that's the other side of that little rubber thing. And that's where the accelerator pump goes. So when the engine is cold and I pump the throttle a couple of times, it moves this little arm here and it pumps fuel down this little hole right there. It goes down that little hole. And I believe it's supposed to squirt out right here at the top. It squirts out these little, there's two little brass things, I guess. Squirts out just a little bit of fuel. And then the engine fires up. I think it's something down in here. When I try to stick this straw from the carb cleaner, I stick it down in that hole and I spray and it just blasts back out of there. I feel like it should be coming out. It should be just spraying out here. So let me take this apart and let's see what's going on in there. Maybe some of that gunk is down in there clogging it up. All right, down in this little hole here, I was correct. That is where the fuel, when I step on the accelerator, I pump on the accelerator a couple of times, it should be squirting up through here and down these. There's two little tiny brass things. They're all cleared out. It should be squirting a little bit of fuel each time you pump the accelerator. And that should give me enough fuel to start the truck. So this and this little ball here was down in the hole and nothing was coming through. All right, so I just used the carb cleaner and squirted everything. I don't see any trash or anything in there, no gunk. We just made a little trip to Summit Racing. We spent about $40, $43 I think. So we bought us a new accelerator pump diaphragm, 30cc. The old one, I did not even want to waste time trying to clean this thing. It's so rusted and just a lot of gunk in there. This thing was $8. And the spring, this is the return spring. This thing is all, it's like rusted and corroded. I had to pay $19 for a 10-pack. Ridiculous. The only way you can get one at a time is maybe ordering from eBay, but I did not want to wait a week or longer to get these, so I had to buy 10 of these, $19, and I'll probably never use these. I also bought a couple of gaskets that we'll get into. So now we're going to start putting this thing back together. I think that might be called the power valve. Anyway, I went ahead and put that in there yesterday. I think this is called the nozzle bar. That's what the Summit calls it, the nozzle bar, because I bought a nozzle bar gasket. Okay, I noticed yesterday there's no gasket in here. That probably happened the first time I cleaned this thing. I guess I tore the gasket up or something like a couple years ago and I never put one in there. So I don't have a gasket in here. That means this piece, it sits closer down. And this little screw here, okay, down inside that hole, it's a float. Now some of them have a little like weighted thing, looks like a plumb bob, but this one actually has like a BB in there. I guess that's like a backflow, some kind of float. So this screw, when you screw it down, I think it's actually, it's not allowing that ball in there, that float, to move around properly. Okay, now it was all junked up and corroded and stuff, but I think because this gasket was missing, this piece here, this nozzle, it was sitting too close, which means this screw, when you screw the screw down, I think it's too close in there to that float, or that little BB, and it wasn't allowing it to move properly. Hopefully that makes sense. I hope you're not trying to learn this from me, because I confuse myself. So let's take this apart. Let's start putting some new gaskets on here. Here we go, nozzle bar gasket. These were $7. Yeah, $7 for a 2-pack. The one over here is okay. I just need to replace the main side, or the primary side. So that's good. I'll stick this in a drawer, and I've got an extra one for the future. Okay. I also bought a booster screw gasket. That's what Summit's calling it. This little screw here that holds this nozzle down, there's a little gasket that goes underneath it. We bought a 2-pack, and that was $5, so I only need one. So we'll stick that in a drawer. Now I got an extra. So here it is, little tiny thing. Went ahead and just cleaned it off with a screwdriver. So we'll put the new gasket on here. So let's put this in here now. I don't want to over tighten it. I think that's how I ripped the other one when I was putting it back together. I cranked it down pretty good, and then it just tore. Like, this gasket's just felt. I guess it's felt, so barely snug it down. Alright, I'm going to do a quick test here, and I don't know if I can film it. Alright, maybe I can prop that up. Okay, you know, that's, so if you don't know, that's where the accelerator pump diaphragm goes, and that little hole, that's where the fuel, when you pump the accelerator, you know, the fuel should squirt through that hole. Probably going to make a mess here, but yes, it worked. I got it all over my hands. I'm going to try to film it one more time. It's like spraying back here too, but it's coming through now. You can see it. Yes. So happy. So I think we got this thing fixed. I'm going to put the accelerator pump diaphragm and the new spring in there. And now I believe when I pump the throttle, all this is cleared up. And it should squirt my fuel in there. Oh man, should be wearing gloves. Got this all over me. We got our new spring and our new diaphragm here. Let's flip this over. Put our spring in here. The new diaphragm. I had to go and clean the underside of this. I still had a bunch of dirt and stuff underneath there, but I believe, let's see, it goes like this, I think, and like that maybe. It's raining. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Well, that is looking real nice. Got a brand new diaphragm, new spring. Let's put this top on here. I should have went ahead and bought another gasket. This is the original gasket, but it seems to be okay. It doesn't really leak. That's upside down. Got to get my floats back in there. Oh, wait a minute. Is this the right way? Yes. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. That's right, because that's the front of the truck. Electric choke is over there. Hopefully my floats are still where they need to be. I had them adjusted correctly to where the fuel is about in the middle of both sight glasses. I think that's how the instructions said to do it. We got this thing all back together. I've got a little bit more carb cleaner left, so I'm going to throw some gloves on and maybe use the rest of this can. I'm going to really try to get all into these little gunky areas that I didn't clean earlier. I was trying to save some of this to get that inside area, and since we got it fixed, I believe we can use the rest of the can. It is so humid out here. We got a bunch of storms rolling through here. Okay, let's get this carb back on here. I'm gonna pull these paper towels out of here. Got to take the nuts and washers off. My next plan is to clean up this engine, really the whole engine bay. That's going to be the next thing we do, and we're going to start replacing some parts like this battery tray and this rusted inner fender. Just nuts back on here. Man, that breeze feels good. I don't have a torque wrench and I don't know the torque specifications, so I just tightened it down, tightened all these down with my ratchet. Vacuum line here. A 12-volt supply to the electric choke. We're going to be replacing this later in another video. This little thing right here. Hook up our spring to the accelerator. Take this little clip off. Put our accelerator pedal on there. Pedal, cable. Yeah, something like that. Very nice. Yeah, this is what we just replaced, the diaphragm. The accelerator pump diaphragm. So when I pump the throttle and it pulls this back, you can see it move this and it pushes up, and that should squirt a little fuel in there. So when I get in there on a cold start, pump the throttle a couple of times, it should pump fuel up in there, and hopefully I won't have to put anything in here anymore. Now I know sometimes you have to adjust this, so that may be the next thing we have to do if it's still not working correctly. I think the last thing I have to do is hook up the fuel line, which I've now got under here. That was kind of stupid. Okay, I had it on there right. Alright, I'm going to put the fuel line on there and tighten it down. Man, this carburetor looks real good. I cleaned it up real nice. Yeah, all this was all gunked up. It cleaned up real good. Okay, maybe not that. It is time to turn this thing over and see if it will start without putting anything in the carburetor. Now let's not get nervous if this doesn't start, because remember, the fuel bowls are empty. Normally the fuel bowls are at least half full. I normally have the float set so they're half full. So if I were to pump the throttle, it would go ahead and squirt fuel into the carburetor. Well, it's not going to do that now. So because we have an electronic fuel pump, I'm going to turn the fuel pump on and let it run for a little bit. And we'll watch this. It should fill up here, and hopefully it's going to fill up those fuel bowls, and then we can try to start it. Well, you know what? We're going to have to hook up the battery, aren't we? Eight millimeter. Got ants crawling all over this thing. We got our key. So hopefully we got enough battery power. Let's turn this thing over. All right, the battery meter just went up. Fuel pump is running, and I hear the fuel. And the fuel is filling up the fuel filter I don't see the fuel bowls filling up. Let's just give it a minute. Oh, there. Okay, there we go. There we go. Must have been like an air bubble or air lock. So this thing made a funny noise, but look, now it's half full. So let's try it. Let's try it. I wish I had someone up here to film this. I don't see anything in the back fuel bowl, but let's turn this over. Okay, I'm going to pump this thing a few times. Hopefully that's going to put some fuel into the carburetor. And let's see. Yes! Yes! Okay. We have fixed this thing. Can you believe it? Man, I am sweating. Looking rough. Oh, easy. Pay attention. Pay attention. I cannot believe this thing started. 21. What? Have I owned this thing for 4 years? I've owned this thing at least 3 years. It's never started without starting fluid or putting gas into the carburetor, and I finally figured it out. So humid and sweaty out here. This is awesome. It took a little while, but I think with some more tinkering and fine tuning, I can probably get it so I can pump the accelerator 2 or 3 times and it'll fire right up. But right now I'm holding the accelerator down, and usually once I hold it down for a little bit, a minute or two, the engine will warm up and then it'll run fine by itself. You just don't understand how incredible this is. I've been fighting this starting issue the whole time I've owned this truck. It's June of 2021. I think I bought this truck around sometime in 2018, like the spring of 2018. How's my hair look? My gel's running out for sweat. All right, is it gonna idle? This is incredible. Whew. We did it. I'm so happy. I cleaned this carburetor probably like 2 years ago. I made a video, a small, short, quick video, whatever. If I would have cleaned the accelerator pump 2 years ago when I cleaned the carburetor, I probably would have figured it out back then, but I'm not a mechanic, I'm a parts changer. I'm so happy right now. I want to get this thing I've got insurance on this truck. I have a tag for it. I can drive it on the road. I mean, it needs to be more dependable, which now I think it'll start on its own. It needs new tires. The tires are dry rotted. It needs a paint job. I got to fix a few of the leaks. But I want to drive this thing around on the road. I'm so happy right now. Now we can move on to some other projects. I'm going to clean up the engine. I'm going to clean up the cab, get the front windshield replaced. We're going to paint this thing. We're going to fix a bunch of the leaks, fix the hydraulics. Hopefully you'll stick around for some more videos like this. If you made it this far, thanks for watching.